All right, Mr. President, here's what people don't understand is that the committee that adopted this amendment, 13-10, they don't realize this is the largest testing and training area for the United States military. That's why in the legislation, in law, we protect everything east of that line that we passed 3 years ago. And in return, we gave the oil boys an additional 8.3 million acres in their 181 and lease sale 181 South. That, by the way, is in addition to their 33 million acres that they have under lease here and here that they have not drilled. Now, why do the oil companies want to have this additional lease area when in fact they have a lot of leases that they haven't drilled? 33 million acres plus another 8 million acres. Well, it's because a lease has a legal value that if there's estimated to be any oil or gas there, that has a value. And those leases then become a part of the assets of the company, which increases the value of the company, which of course then makes their stock worth more. But what we struck in the compromise 3 years ago that everybody out here on this Senate floor agreed to, I might say, with Senator Martinez and me, was in exchange for getting that additional area that they would leave the military mission, test and evaluation and training area alone. Now, in the last round of BRAC, which is the Base Realignment and Closure Commission, the R of BRAC is realignment. Is it any wonder that in that round of evaluating military bases that they decided to send all the pilot training for the new stealth fighter, the F-22, that they brought it here to Tyndall Air Force Base at Panama City? Why? Because they've got that area. Listen, this fighter does a dogfight at 1.5 Mach, twice what an F-22, twice what an F-16 and an F-15 does a dogfight at. They're doing a dogfight, doing tight turns at about 0.75 Mach. The new F-22 stealth fighter will go into and engage another aircraft at 1.5 Mach. When you do turns at twice the speed of an F-15 and F-16, you've got a much wider radius of a turn. That's why they need all of that area. And when they are dropping on targets, they're dropping live ordnance. When we are testing here at Eglin Air Force Base, long-range weapon systems, some that we release from airplanes, some that are shot from ships. We need hundreds of miles of range. That's why the operative policy of the Department of Defense is that you can't have oil rigs out here to interfere with national security preparation. But apparently that's not why 13 members of the Senate Energy Committee understood this argument. Now there's another argument. And by the way, I might point out that in that realignment of the bases that they're bringing into Eglin Air Force Base right here all the pilot training for the new F-35. That's the Joint Strike Fighter that is still being developed, but that will be coming out within the next few years. That's the Joint Strike Fighter for the Navy, the Marines, and the Air Force. And that Joint Strike Fighter will be sold to some of our allies. And where is the pilot training? Right here. Because of the restrictions, it being a test, a training, and evaluation area. That's why the U.S. military brought these new assets into this area. All right. Mr. President, there is another reason now that I get so exercised about this, other than the fact that the agreements that were set, that were agreed to, the compromises that were struck 3 years ago are now being abrogated, and that is they now bring oil rig leasing within 10 miles of the world's most beautiful beaches. There are not too many Americans that don't know that the beaches running from Pensacola all the way through Panama City to Mexico Beach are some of the world's most beautiful beaches. They are sugary white sand that people from all over go to enjoy this extraordinary, valuable resource. It is God's way of giving us a blessing on earth that people enjoy when they want to go to the beach. Can you imagine now what the Energy Committee has passed, allowing oil rigs 10 miles off of the world's most beautiful beaches? Now, environmentally, that's one thing, but let's look at the economy of Florida. The economy of Florida, we are a peninsula. We have more coastline than any other state, save for Alaska, but Alaska doesn't have a lot of beaches. We have more beaches than than any other state. Is it any wonder that we want to protect our economy, which is a $60 billion a year tourism industry, particularly at a time when the economy is being savaged as much as it is? And yet, the Senate Energy Committee would say that they are not only going to ignore the military test and training range that's been off limits in the law, but now that they're going to run rigs up to 10 miles offshore and threaten those sugary white beaches? Well, let me just tell you a few points about this wise energy policy that they have supposedly adopted. We all know that increased domestic drilling is not going to decrease U.S. dependence on foreign oil. That's been shown over and over. Why? Because if there were oil there, you're not going to get it into production for 10 years. And so using the scare tactics of the gas prices going up and up, it doesn't do a bit for decreasing U.S. dependence on foreign oil and helping gas prices. But let's say that it would. And even though bad oil spills and shipping accidents take place, let's say for a moment that the technological innovations now have made all drilling operations safe. And if the United States wishes to remain dependent on oil, well, shouldn't we drill anywhere we can find oil? Well, how about Colorado for oil shale? But oh no, that's off limits. Well, how about the 5 Great Lakes They should have plenty of black gold. But that's off limits. How about the oil-rich Arctic National Wildlife Refuge? But that's off limits, and this senator has supported keeping that off limits. No. The reality is, instead, some of my colleagues in the Senate now, they want to come. It's kind of like, don't tax you, don't tax me, go tax that fella under the tree. They want to go and hit somebody else. And they want to cut the heart and the lungs out of the United States military testing area, and they want to come in and start fouling up the most beautiful beaches in the world in the northwest Florida coast. 3 years ago, we opened up that additional 8.3 million acres. We didn't allow any drilling any closer than 100 miles off of Pensacola, 125 miles off of Panama City, 237 miles off of Tampa Bay, and over 300 miles off of Naples. And why are some people pushing to change this so soon after that compromise that was struck 3 years ago? It's the oil industry, that's why. The oil industry has those 33 million acres out here in the central and western Gulf. It's leased, it's not being drilled, but that's not enough for them. And even though the industry hand-picked areas opened up here in the 2006 compromise, it now feels that it can make more of a profit by drilling closer to Florida's coast. I don't think we should have to trash our coastline and our economy and the United States military just so big oil can increase its profit margin. And there are the serious national security implications if this were to become law. I want to show you something else, Madam President. Look at this picture. This is the coastline of Louisiana. You know what that is? That's oil mixing with white, sugary, powdery white sand. Drilling 10 miles off of the coast of Florida would destroy the economy of the nation's fourth largest state. It would convert Florida's world-class beaches to an industrial coastline. We would trade the world's top beaches and the tourist attractions for an industrial wasteland dotted with transmission pipes and storage tanks and oil rigs. And we would take away the United States military's last unfettered testing and training range and take it away during a time of war. Supporters of opening up the Eastern Gulf say that we need to do it to help get America off foreign oil. Tell me then, why isn't there a clause in the drilling amendment that was passed specifying that all oil and natural gas that would be produced in the Eastern Gulf, that would specify that it had to stay in the United States for domestic consumption? But no, that's not there. Because the truth is that any oil that would be drilled could be sent to any other country in the world, reducing our use of foreign oil, Not by one single drop.